Hello friends, welcome to my channel. I am outside, but it's been raining all day and it just had a break in the rain, so I'm hoping to get a video in before it starts raining again, so let's see what we can do. But I have something that I really want to share that I think is really important, and I want to do it outside, so I'm going to try. Okay, I think this is really important, but I want to start it with a disclaimer. I want to preface it with a disclaimer because, well, first of all, I'm not a medical doctor. But second of all, this is not going to apply to everybody, but it's going to apply to enough people that I think it's really important to talk about and say. Important in reference to your healing, unless you already know this. And if you do, great, because I think it's really helpful. This is a key part of healing if this is true for you. If you have a chronic illness that you believe has to do with attachment trauma and has to do with a functional freeze state that's chronic, that your body is sent into a freeze state a lot of the time, and that's what's causing the physical ailments in your body or the misery, whatever kind of misery is happening in your life. If you believe that that's the cause, and you believe that the cause is about attachment trauma, and if you're on this channel, this is probably true for most people. Okay, I want you to ask yourself this question and try to be really honest with yourself and have an open mind. Because if you've never thought of this before, and maybe you have, but if you've never thought of this before and you don't think it's true, just switch your preconceived notions about it off for a minute and just be open to this idea, okay? Could it be possible that one of your parents had narcissistic personality disorder or was narcissistic? Now, I know there's a lot of stuff on narcissism online. There's a lot of stuff, there's a lot more attention being brought to it, which is great. But this isn't about diagnosing people. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I'm an expert. I've been learning a lot about it in the last year. It's been a very important piece of my healing journey. But as I work with more people, it's clear that this is true for enough people that it is worth saying. Because if it is true, if it could be true that one of your parents is narcissistic, that's where the problem is. That's the root of the issue. That is where your pain is. That's where the hole is. That's why your nervous system is going into a freeze state. Because the thing with narcissistic parents is that they don't have the capacity to love unconditionally. And this is not about blaming. This is not about saying that if they do have narcissistic personality, that they are evil or bad people or anything like that. It's speaking to, were they capable of giving you a sense of wholeness that we all need? We all have to have that sense of wholeness to function vitally and happily and joyfully and being fulfilled in our lives. We have to have that wholeness. And unfortunately, narcissistic people are only capable of conditional love. They're not capable, this is what my understanding, they're not capable of unconditional love. As children, we have to have signals and we have to get the message that we are unconditionally loved. We come into this world knowing that that's what love is, understanding that that's what love is. And so when we get a message that is contradictory to that we are not loved unconditionally, we are loved conditionally, whether that's overt or covert. And covert in some ways causes the longest toxicity because it takes the longest time to figure out, when it's just the lack of love, when there's just like this sense of, do you love me? No, I know you love me, but do you care about me? Do you actually? That's a sign. If you have ever had that thought about one of your parents or primary caregivers, if you've ever had this thought, or you've just you hear this thought in your head of defending, like, well, I know they love me. I know they do. I know they love me. And you can give examples of things that they do that show that they love you. And they do love you. Of course they do. Of course parents love their children. But the question is, what are they capable of giving to you energetically? And children are sponges. We are sponges when we're children. It's just osmosis. We can feel when something's not right, when something's not there. There's this question because there are contradictory behaviors. Some behaviors show, yeah, they do love me. See, they do. And then there are others that it's like, do you? Do you? Because there's a question of like, if you did, why would you do that? It's confusing. It is so, and I talked, I think it was last video, on this confusion wound that I call it. You've got it big time if you had a narcissistic parent. If you had a narcissistic parent, you have a belief in you, it's unavoidable, that love is conditional. If you had the other parent love you unconditionally, then you have that too. You know that that's how it should be, but you go into the world questioning. Am I loved? Am I valued? Am I important? And so what happens is we create this persona as children that we are as pleasing and wonderful as we possibly can. And we get all the good grades and we do all the things right and we don't get into trouble, or whatever your strategy is to try to please that parent and not let that parent abandon you even further, because they are abandoning you. And again, this is not about blaming them. They weren't capable of giving you the emotional needs that you had as a child to create a whole sense of self. What happens to children of narcissistic parents is they grow up with a hole in them. A space that was supposed to be filled by osmosis now has created a hole that you have to go and fill. Now it's your job. But how long does it take us to figure that out? And how long does it take for us to figure out how to do that? Because this is something that was supposed to be learned. This is something that's supposed to be just taken in through osmosis, like a sponge. And so we go through the world questioning. Is it safe or is it not safe? And when it's a primary caregiver, this belief that you're loved conditionally embeds, and I've said this a bunch of times, when it's attachment trauma like this, attachment trauma from a narcissistic parent, it can embed every area of your life. Relationships are the biggest, most obvious way a lot of times, but I can't even list all the ways, but your relationship with money and security, like that root chakra stuff, the relationship with all other people, your solar plexus energy, your ability to be like have agency and authority in yourself, in the world, and be able to act on it, your ability to act. What happens when we have a narcissistic parent is we have embedded in us shame, powerlessness, anger, rage, grief. We have all the difficult emotions pretty much because it was not safe. We believed that it was not safe, whether it was overtly said to us or whether it was covert, like the parent just like didn't care. Or that in some way you felt that they were capable of loving you less than they already do. And kids are so sensitive, and we can pick up on that when we're kids. We're soaking up everything. In some way we picked up on the fact that they could love you less. And so we do everything in our power to make sure that doesn't happen, because we're already not getting our needs met, but it's like, it's the best we can do. That's all we ever do. That's all any child ever does. We develop strategies to survive the best we can, right? I think covert narcissism is really tricky to see when it's your parent. All types of narcissism, I think, are hard to see as a parent because it's so painful. It's so painful to realize that and be able to actually accept it. And accept the idea that you can't change them, that there's nothing in your control to enable them to love you the way that you needed to be loved. There's nothing that you can do. We want to believe so badly that we can, that there's something that if, like, maybe they'll be proud of this. And we develop this hypervigilance in what is this parent needing? What does this parent respond to? And it can be really painful to see our parent respond more lovingly to another person, like to our other parent, or to their friends, or the other people in the world. And if they have narcissistic tendencies or personality disorder, it's because They're getting supply from those people, and so they light up. And again, I'm not an expert on this. I'm speaking from, I've learned a lot. I've had to learn a lot. I've had to learn a lot in my own journey and healing my father wounds. And I think until I really put my finger on the fact that this was true and really accepted it, because my current life situation requires that I do, I couldn't understand why the pain was so deep. Why was it so deep? He loved me. He's like, it's so hard to accept. We don't want to let go. We don't want to let go of the chance that they will make us feel seen and valued and important, like the way we craved so badly and didn't get when we were children. And that holding on to hope is like poison. And the process of letting that go involves a lot of grieving, a lot of grieving about what you didn't get and what you have lost in your life because you didn't have a sense of wholeness. There is a lot of grieving there. Our sense of self, our sense of self-worth, that's where it is. And I've said this in the last few videos that I've made. If you have attachment trauma, and this is even more so, this is so potent when you have attachment trauma from a narcissistic parent, that's where your wound is. The wound is to your sense of self-worth. Your sense of self-worth. If you have a narcissistic parent, the wound is deep in its core because you believe that love is conditional. And so you live in fear all the time, not consciously, usually not consciously. This is usually unconscious. And if you're in a free state, if your nervous system is in a free state, functional free state, I should start saying that, because we're functioning, but our nervous system is in the free state. If it's in the free state, it's because you are living in fear and you are being triggered in all these areas. If it's attachment trauma, it can blanket almost every part of your life. And so you're getting triggered and you're being sent into the free state because it wasn't safe. It wasn't safe to express emotion. You feared, you lived in mortal fear that your parent would abandon you even more, leave you even more, give you even less love than you were already getting. And so you have to be that way. You have to be that way. You feel like there's no choice. It's so threatening to be any other way. This is deep stuff, guys. This is like really, because this is your core sense of self. This is your sense of self-worth. But the thing is, deep down, deep down, whether you're conscious of it or not, deep down that you are worthy, you are loved. I've said this on another video. You are important and valuable. You are amazing. You are lovable. You know all this stuff, but it's buried under a pile of crap. A pile of crap that you have taken in, internalized from a person who couldn't love you unconditionally, wasn't capable of doing so, and it all collapsed in your body and it's trapped in there. It's on top of that core sense of self. And I say that to be encouraging because it means that it's not something you have to invent. It's actually something that you just have to uncover. And you uncover it by going through and processing this emotion and being the person that he or she couldn't be for you. And so something that was supposed to be given to us through just experiencing an osmosis, now we have this job of creating it ourselves, of uncovering it and being that for ourselves. And it's a lot of work, and I'm not going to deny that. You have every right to be angry about that. Angry that this person was not capable. And this is not from the adult mind. This is from the child's mind, because the adult mind understands, well, they're just not capable. And so I don't really have a right to be angry. No. That is adult logicking. It does not apply, okay? We're talking about inner child stuff. We're talking about childhood pain that's trapped in there. She or he has to be seen. She or he has to be felt, and felt in a safe, loving presence that doesn't have to be afraid that she or he is ever going to be left. That was the fear from childhood, from a narcissistic parent, if this applies to you, from a narcissistic parent who was going to. Because love is conditional, and that's a felt sense. We could feel it. We could feel it as children. It's amazing. It's actually really incredible what we could pick up on. And so this is the process. This is the wound. This is your wound. If you have a narcissistic parent and you are being sent into the freeze state, this is the wound. It's the wound of being programmed to believe that love is conditional. That love is conditional. And it's not. And we have to rewire our body and mind to understand that love is unconditional in this body. I will always be here for you. You never have to be afraid of being abandoned. That takes a lot of work and a lot of practice because we have been trained to not do that. We've been trained to abandon ourselves. That's what we were taught. That's what we were witnessing. That's what we were experiencing. How could we not? I want to de-shame the shit out of this. I'm sorry for my language, but I do. I want to de-shame this because this is not your fault. And I'm not blaming the parent for being a narcissist, and they're not evil. I'm not going to get into that kind of stuff. It's just that this is for your own healing. And I don't like labels. I generally do not like labels. In this circumstance, I think it can be beneficial if it's just for your own healing and it allows you to go and learn about narcissistic personality because it changes your view. It starts to reprogram this view that it's not about you. It never was about you. Because that's what we do. We blame ourselves, right? Because we know love should be unconditional. So if it was conditional, then there must be something wrong with me. There has to be. Because this doesn't make any sense. It's the only way that we can make sense of it. So part of the healing is, I think, at least it's been extremely helpful for me, and I'm still in this process, as I said, is learning about this personality, learning the characteristics, and really embedding in your mind and changing your perspective. It's not about me. This isn't the only part of the healing, because it's mostly about learning how to be here for ourselves. But that programming, it can help us get that parent out of our head as in terms of how we see ourselves and switch it to that it's about him or her. It's about their capacity. It's not about me. It never was about me. It was never my fault. I was always wonderful. I was always this wonderful. But again, that's not all that you need to do. It's mostly about the emotions. There's grief there, as I said. There's grief. There's anger, there's rage, there might be disgust, there's a lot of sadness, there's powerlessness. Oh boy, powerlessness is, at least it's a big one for me, as I've talked about. And again, grief. But that's good because we can all cry. We know how. And I've made another video on how to cry in order to heal. I'll put a link to that below. But this is why havening is so important. This is why breathing is so important. Deep breathing. We've got to create this safety because we got messages that it wasn't safe. Unless we have to be so this way and that way in order to be safe. But the thing is, we're still not safe. As you've noticed in your life, you get triggered. You get triggered because it's like if we don't get that validation, because we live in fear, if we don't get validation, then that means we're not loved because love is conditional. We're not safe. And so when we don't get that validation, we can plummet so easily, I speak from personal experience, into this deep, dark place. Shame, self-hatred. It's painful and feels ugly in there, and it's miserable. But it's not about you. What I mean by that, it's not your fault. The responsibility has to be externalized to that parent. It's not about blame. It's not about being angry at that person, saying anything to them, involving them at all. This is about our own internal self-healing. I really wanted to speak to this today because, again, it applies to enough people. Not everybody, but enough people that I think it's really worth asking yourself, is it possible that one of your parents was narcissistic? And if it is, that is the pain. That's where it is. And it's to your sense of self-worth. You can't get through childhood with a narcissistic parent without having deep wounds to your sense of self-worth because of the capacities of a narcissistic person. Okay, I hope this was helpful. I hope you're having a beautiful day. I hope you're doing well on your healing journey. If you want any support, if you want to do phone sessions of coaching, I would love to support you. It can really help in the healing process and speed healing along. It's so helpful to be able to speak about this and have outside perspective and reminders of things, and somebody who's been through it and continuing to go through it and knows how it feels. So if you are interested in booking a session with me, my website is linked down below. It's laurenvoorhees.com. You can book a session on there. And email me if you have any questions. If you like this video, like it, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Share the video if you think it might be helpful to somebody. I hope you're doing wonderfully. Take care. Bye.